Missing someone with all your honey.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Cruise Sin City. Today I'm going to be adjusting the angle on my handlebars. This might be something you're interested in. If you want to move them further forward, further back, straight up and down, whatever you want. You can do it with the stock handlebars. I know I did when I first had them. I moved them all the way forward. For these, I am going to be adjusting it so that the bars are straight in line with the forks. And that's going to give me the best handling and performance that I want out of this bike. I did get super close when I originally put these bars on. And I don't know if it's going to come across in the video, but you can tell that they're just slightly too forward. So I'm going to bring them back just a couple degrees angle. And to do that, to get under this gauge cluster. So we're gonna have to remove all this stuff, and then the riser's in there. Just loosen the riser bolts, put the handlebar to where we want, tighten it back down, put all this stuff back on. And then what's gonna really be the hard part is adjusting the hand controls. So there's a pin inside of here that stops these from moving at a certain angle, and you want your controls to be at the correct angle for your hands when you set them. So we're gonna have to open these up, take out that pin, and then from there, we can move the hand controls and it will be done. Let's go ahead and get started on that. As you can see there, we got the two screws from the side of the Nakala, or the Nakla, whatever it's called, this piece right here, and then we took off the ignition. The next hard part is getting these wires unplugged from the back of the gauge cluster, but looking at it, I think that I can get to those bolts without taking it off, because I just need to loosen them. I don't need to take everything out. So I'm gonna loosen those 4 bolts, and then angle the handlebars with the forks, and go from there. We've got our handlebars loose at the riser clamp. So some of the reasons you might want to do this, you can move them further forward to have more stretch. Maybe you feel like your bars aren't tall enough or your arms are too long, so you can move them far forward as you can go. Maybe they're too tall for you. You can bring them down as much as you want. But for me, I'm going to try to angle them right with the forks. Now remember, when you're doing this, you need to turn your bars full tilt left, full tilt right to make sure they clear everything, especially on the Road Glide because it's a fixed fairing. So what that means is the handlebars move independently of all this fairings. When you move them too far forward, they're just going to hit right into that windshield if you have a tall windshield or a fairing or whatever it is, and it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to go full tilt. So make sure it goes full tilt left, full tilt right. Make sure all your controls work, your clutch, your brake, the whole 9. And once you do that, then you're good to go. You can button it up, and after that, we're going to adjust our levers. The most important thing when you're tightening down your riser clamp is going in an X pattern to make sure they all tighten down evenly. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. Get them snug and then torque them down to spec. Here's a fun little tip that I'd like to give you guys. I've got this nice little toolbox here, but what I do is all the tools that I use for a job, especially on a small job, it makes it easier. Keep those tools out and about, so when you're putting everything back together, you've got them out, you don't have to hunt for them twice. On a big job, if you're rebuilding a motor or something like that and you're using your whole toolbox, that doesn't really make sense. But for something like this, super small, it totally saves time. Let's go ahead, button up the handlebars. We've got our bars adjusted to where we want them. Now, the levers aren't quite where I personally would like them. Some people might want them higher, some people might want them lower, but because I'm up taller than the handlebars, I need them to angle down a little bit more. It's all gonna depend on where your shoulders sit on the bike and how tall you are. For this, these are too angled up for me. I'm gonna level them out, probably parallel with the floor. This is gonna be good for what I want, and that's gonna allow me to adjust my mirrors better and all that fun stuff. So let's go ahead and get this stuff off and get in there and adjust it. see this little hole in the handlebars? Any bars that are made to fit for road glides are gonna have this hole in there. And that's to fit this pin. Some companies might have a bigger hole, stock ones probably have a smaller hole, and there's also a similar thing inside the riser on a stock bike. But to get full adjustments out of there, you have to get rid of those pins. This could also work if you bought handlebars that maybe don't fit a road glide, but would fit if you got rid of these pins, as long as the clamping diameter is right, throttle by wire, all that fun stuff. What we're gonna do is we're going to get rid of this pin. The first thing we're gonna try to do it with is these handy dandy vice grips. Just get a hold of it. That doesn't seem to be working. All right, next step. All right, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. Got it. Don't know if that was enough, but we cut it with the Dremel and then snapped it off with the vise. We'll see if we have to grind it down a little bit more. So there it is, that's what it took. We had to get a rotary tool, cut off wheel, cut the edges out, snap it off with the vice grip, and then we ground it down. So it's pretty much flush now. It's enough for what we're doing. Luckily, I did, well, not luckily, I did scrape the inside of this with the rotary tool, but you'll never be able to see it on the bike because it's against the handlebar, so it'll look like that still. Still brand new and fresh and clean. But if this is what you want to do, if you want to get out of those stock Harley adjustments and really adjust your stuff to the way you like it, you got to get down and dirty and you got to do this. So there's a pin inside the riser that I took out a long time ago, and then there's these pins inside the hand controls, and this is the clamp that goes to the clutch, and then the other pin is the clamp that goes into the brake, and that's where that pin is. So if you want that maximum adjustability, that's where you got to go. You got to go to this level. Well, I'll tell you what, the second one was definitely a lot faster now that I knew the system. Dremel the edges, snap it off with a vice grip, and then Dremel it down flat. Boom. Super clean. And you'll never be able to see all that scraped metal inside the handlebar. Adjusted up. A couple quick things before we go for a test ride. Number one, are the bars at the right angle that you want? That was the whole point of this, was getting the bars at the angle. If they're not, well, go back in there, redo it, make sure it is where you want. Number two, your levers. Are your levers where you want? Are your levers the same? I like it to be level, same. Aesthetically, it looks good in my opinion. It feels better, all that. Number three, and this is probably the most important one out of all these adjustments, is to check the clearance. So full lock left. I can go full all the way lock left, all the way right, full lock right. Now for me, I brought them back, so I knew I was gonna have enough clearance, but this is where I want my bars. Let's go for a ride.
We made it, guys. We're out here on Las Vegas Boulevard. This is the south end. Obviously, I had to ride the bike here, so I've gotten a little bit of feel of what's going on with these handlebars, and I'll tell you what, the flickability, if you will, is impressive. Just the feel of the bike really improved a lot just by changing that small angle. And I mean, I changed it like 5, maybe 10 degrees back. And then we adjusted the handlebar, or the levers. So the levers fit where the handlebars are now, which is important. One big change for me is now I can see my gas gauge and the battery gauge, which is battery gauge, I don't know, like whatever, but I like to check my gas gauge, and I used to have to duck down under the bar or look over it because the bar went right across where that gas gauge is, but now it's, the gas gauge is above the bars. but you could feel the flickability of changing it to having it that correct angle with the forks. And originally when I put the bars on, I was thinking, oh, let me put them all the way forward. You know, I'm tall, I need all this room. But that's not what's up with the setup that I'm doing, you know? Like, I've done the 16-inch ape thing, and this isn't what this bike build is. It's a performance-driven build, so we need to do performance-driven things. I didn't want to go with T-bars because the gauges at the bottom would completely block it out. You'd have to drill it out. You'd have to relocate the gauges. You either go cheap and it looks wacky, or it jumps the price tag like, whew. I mean, it triples the price tag. Just the gauge relocation is like $600. Not to mention the T-bars are more expensive for the Road Glide, because you got to get a relocation bracket and all that. I mean, these bars cost me a little under $400, I think. Sounds about right. And to do the T-bar setup right, to move the gauges up here or onto the bars, and then you got to get them low enough to where they don't block the nav screen. I mean, you're looking at $1,500 to $2,000, depending on who you're going through, to do it right. You know, and that's just, I don't know, a little bit much. I want to get nice parts and everything, but I'm not going to spend $2,000 on bars. That's crazy. But this road sucks. This is like, hands down, the worst road in the country to ride on. I'm probably going to dip off of it at some point. It's really the worst. I just kind of wanted to get like the Vegas backdrop, and it's not worth it. It really sucks. There's like tons of traffic. It's super hot out, and today's not even like, for Vegas, it's not a crazy hot day. For the bike to only be reading 105 on the concrete, I mean, that means, I don't know, maybe these are more accurate than like some cars or other bikes that I've had. Or I guess I've never had a bike with a temperature readout until this one, but you know, cars tend to read a little bit high out here in the desert because the concrete gets hot and it raises up. It's hot. But yeah, so for me, I brought these bars back. I angled them straight with the forks. That really nibbled them up. You could feel it under you. I've got those Dynashocks on there now, which they're better than stock, like I said in the last video, but I want some Oline 044s eventually. Go big or go home, right? Got a Wambulance up here. I mean, just the madness of Las Vegas. Man, it's hard enough to ride a motorcycle just by yourself, like just regular riding on the strip. And then you add in the fact that you're trying to do a moto vlog, and it's like, whoa. Alright guys, I'm going to get off the strip. It's crazy hot out here. But long story short, the bar position is where I want it. But the whole point of this video is to put the bars where you want them. Whatever you want to do, forward, back, down, up, you know, that's up to you. If you want more room, stretch them forward. Want them lower, bring them closer. That's just kind of how the geometry of it works. Like when I had the stock bars, I moved them all as far forward as I could without hitting the ferry. And that made them feel taller to me on those stock bars until I could get these bars. So that's up to you. One thing I noticed with that is the pullback was like really extreme, so my hands were almost like tilted in. But something like this, you know, it's got a more, it's a better pullback designed to be pushed forward a little bit more. But I think putting these bars straight with the forks has actually put the pullback where it's supposed to be. Because forward, I don't think the pullback was dialed in correctly. Because they're super comfortable right now. They're definitely not apes, even though they're the ape shape. They're way more T-bar than ape in ergonomics. Obviously, the looks are a little bit different, and then the way it's done is a little bit different. But ergonomically, the width, the height, everything like that, I love it. I'm in love with it. I love these bars. The hoopteeze Vindikta bars. This is, like, hands down my favorite bike I've ever owned. This 2019 Road Glide. I had a Yamaha FZ6R, and then I had a Yamaha R1, which that one was a blast for sure. But then I had, then I got a Harley Sportster, and that was my first Harley. That was fun to rip on. You know, it was the first Harley. And then I got my Street Bob, and I did a lot of that, a lot of work to that made it super quick. And that was fun. But this one, I mean, just the base platform of it. One day, this bike is going to be, woo! Once I get it all dialed in and everything. Oh man, it's going to be awesome. Alright guys, I'm headed off the strip. I'll see y'all later. Peace out.